Have you ever been trapped in a pointless debate, trying to explain your motives to someone who has already judged you? You lay out your reasons, your logic, your heartfelt intentions, only to have your words twisted and used as ammunition against you. You walk away feeling drained, misunderstood, and weaker, like you've just lost a fight you never wanted. Machiavelli, the master strategist of power, would say your mistake wasn't what you explained, but that you explained it all. He understood a brutal truth that has echoed through the corridors of power for centuries. In the game of perception, explanations often read as weakness. To explain is to apologize. To justify is to seek approval. And seeking approval means surrendering your power. This isn't a lesson in communication. It's a lesson in power. While some modern takes have softened his work, Machiavelli's philosophy was forged by observing the brutal reality of politics, where survival hinged on being effective, not on being understood. This video dissects a core idea inspired by his thinking. While you won't find the specific rule, never explain. In the principle, it's a powerful principle you can derive from his entire philosophy. In the calculus of power, explaining yourself can be an act of submission. It's a strategic error that hands control of your story, your reputation, and your authority over to your audience. We're going to explore how to use the silence and ambiguity he championed to build an aura of untouchable authority in our modern world. Before we can break the self-sabotaging habit of over-explaining, we have to understand where it comes from. The urge to explain isn't really a logical one. It's a deeply wired emotional impulse, born from psychological needs and fears. For a strategist like Machiavelli, understanding these drivers is the first step to mastering them, both in yourself and in others. First up is the powerful fear of being misunderstood. This comes from our basic human need for social connection. We're taught from a young age that being clear and honest builds trust. We believe that if our intentions are good, it's our job to make sure everyone sees them that way. A misunderstanding feels like a threat to our reputation, a stain that needs to be wiped away immediately. So, we rush to provide context and lay out our reasoning, thinking it'll lead the other person to our point of view. But a cold observer like Machiavelli would call this naive. He believed people are governed by their immediate desires and are easily fooled. As he famously wrote, men tend to judge more by what they see than by what they feel, because everyone can see, but few can truly understand. When you rush to explain, you assume the other person is interested in your true intentions. More often than not, they're just interested in how your actions affect them. Your explanation isn't heard as a good faith clarification. It's scanned for weaknesses, for leverage, for admissions of guilt or uncertainty. You think you're offering transparency? They see you making excuses. The second driver is a deep need for validation. This is the silent plea for approval, hiding behind our justifications. When you say, "Let me explain why I did that," what you're often really saying is, "Please tell me what I did was okay. Please confirm I'm still a good, rational person." You're putting your emotional state in their hands, making them the judge of your actions. You've given them the power to grant you peace of mind or to take it away. In the world of power, this is a catastrophic mistake. Power doesn't ask for validation. It is its own validation. An action taken with authority is a fact, not a proposal waiting for approval. By explaining, you're admitting your action can't stand on its own. It needs their understanding to be legitimate. Machiavelli saw that a leader's authority had to be self-evident. Constantly justifying his decisions would only invite debate and signal that his power was conditional. Third, there's a modern idea that fits perfectly here. The fawn response. Machiavelli wouldn't have used the term, but he'd have recognized the behavior instantly. It's a concept from psychology describing the instinct to appease a threat. When faced with conflict or criticism, many people try to pacify the aggressor by being as helpful and explanatory as possible. They over-explain their motives and apologize constantly, hoping to de-escalate the situation. This is explanation as a survival tactic, but in the world of power, it does the opposite. It marks you as prey. When you fawn, you teach the other person that their aggression will be rewarded with your submission. You're training them to challenge you, knowing you'll crumble and hand over everything they need to control you. Your detailed explanations give them a perfect blueprint of your fears, values, and triggers. You're handing them the keys to your own cage. Finally, We explain because we believe that logic is the ultimate decider in human interaction. We want to live in a world where the best argument wins. It's a comforting fantasy. But Machiavelli's writings show he believed people are not rational creatures. He saw human nature as, in essence, ungrateful, fickle, deceptive, anxious to avoid danger, and eager for gain. It's a harsh, but pragmatic, view. People are swayed by appearances, emotion, self-interest, and power, rarely by a well-reasoned argument from someone they see as weak. When you offer a logical explanation to someone who's emotional or trying to dominate you, your logic is useless. It's like trying to put out a fire with paper. Your points won't be heard. Instead, the very act of explaining will be seen as a desperate attempt to regain control. They won't debate your points. They'll attack your motive. They'll ask, "Why are you being so defensive?" and turn your logic into proof of your emotional instability. In the Machiavellian worldview, these impulses are strategic liabilities. They are the cracks in your armor that any rival will exploit. To control how you're perceived, you must first wage war on these impulses. You have to unlearn the habit of finding comfort in explanation and learn to find strength in silence. Now that we've dissected the flawed psychology behind explaining, we need to adopt Machiavelli's ruthless clarity and reframe the act itself. In the common view, explaining is communication. In the Machiavellian view, it can be an act of war over perception, which you sometimes start by unilaterally disarming. The words you use are almost irrelevant. The act of using them is everything. Let's be clear. You won't find a chapter in The Prince titled "Never Explain Yourself." That would be too simplistic for Machiavelli, whose entire philosophy is about adapting to the situation. But the principle is a powerful extension of his core ideas on projecting strength and managing appearances. Here is the brutal reframe. Explanation is often a confession of inferiority. The moment you feel forced to explain your actions to someone who isn't a trusted partner in a shared goal, you have psychologically placed them above you. You've become the defendant, and they've become the judge. You are silently signaling, "Your opinion of my actions has power over me. Your judgment is something I have to manage." This dynamic is everywhere. In a business negotiation, the side that starts over-explaining its position reveals its anxieties. They're no longer dictating terms, they're justifying them. In a social setting, the person who explains why they belong is the one who clearly doesn't. In a relationship, the partner who constantly explains their behavior has lost control of the frame. They are reacting, not leading. Power doesn't typically explain power acts. Its actions create the new reality. It's the job of others to interpret, adapt, and deal with the consequences. When a truly powerful entity makes a move, it doesn't follow up with a press release detailing its insecurities. It moves on to the next objective. The action itself is the explanation. Anything more dilutes its impact and suggests the act wasn't enough on its own. Machiavelli knew a leader's words and appearances were crucial, but they were meant to project virtue and strength, not to justify decisions out of weakness. This is why he placed so much value on the appearance of resolve. A leader who hesitates or feels the need to justify his commands is a leader on the verge of being overthrown. His explanations aren't seen as transparency. They're seen as a search for consensus, which implies he lacks the confidence to rule alone. He's asking for permission after the fact. Plus, your reasons become fuel for your adversaries. You think your explanation is a shield, but a skilled manipulator will turn it into a sword. Every reason you give is a data point. You say, "I was late because of a family emergency." You hope for sympathy. What your rival hears is, "My family is a vulnerability." You explain to your boss, "The project failed because we lacked resources." You think you're being objective? What your boss hears is, "I don't take full responsibility and I blame external factors." Your reasons give them a map to your mind. They learn what you value, what you fear, and how you react under pressure. Why would you give that gift to someone who doesn't have your best interests at heart? As Machiavelli advised, a leader must be a master of appearances. He wrote that it's not necessary for a prince to have all good qualities, but it's very necessary to appear to have them. Explaining your true reasoning violates this. It tears down the carefully constructed image and reveals the machinery behind the curtain. The mystery, a key component of power, evaporates. Once they know how you think, they can predict what you'll do. and a predictable leader is a controllable one. The act of explaining also betrays an anxiety about silence. We're conditioned to see silence as an awkward void that must be filled. When hit with an accusation, the instinct is to rush in and fill that silence with words. But the one who can withstand that pressure, who can hold the silence, is the one who controls the frame. Silence is a statement of confidence. It says you're not intimidated, you're not scrambling, and you don't have to respond on their terms. It forces the other person to confront their own uncertainty. They're left wondering what you're thinking. Is he angry? Does he know something I don't? The pressure shifts back to them. Often, they will be the one to break the silence, just to resolve the tension you created by doing nothing. In the Machiavellian paradigm, explanation can be a form of surrender. It's a surrender of status, strategic information, and control. It's a reactive move in a game won by proactive players. The powerful understand that their actions, their results, and their presence are the only explanations that matter. Let the world debate your motives. While they're busy talking, you're busy winning. To stop explaining isn't to become a mute or a brute. It's to become a strategist. You have to replace the clumsy tool of explanation with a more sophisticated arsenal. Let's call them strategic silence, calculated ambiguity, and surgical redirection. These aren't Machiavelli's terms, but they are modern weapons forged in the spirit of his philosophy, allowing you to shape a narrative by skillfully withholding information. The first and most powerful weapon is strategic silence. This isn't the awkward silence of someone who's been caught off guard. This is a deliberate, unnerving, and commanding silence. It's a pause that lasts just a second too long, forcing everyone to lean in. When faced with an accusation or a baited question, the untrained response is to immediately fire back with a defense. The strategic response is to meet it with a moment of absolute stillness. Imagine a colleague publicly challenges your decision, saying, "I don't understand why you chose this direction. It seems incredibly risky." The reflex is to launch into a detailed defense. Instead, just hold their gaze without expression for 3 solid seconds. In that brief eternity, the spotlight, which was on you, now feels intensely shared. Your silence makes their aggressive question hang in the air, exposing its hostile intent. The room gets uncomfortable, and the source of that discomfort is the challenger. When you finally do speak, your words will carry 10 times the weight. And what should those words be? This brings us to calculated ambiguity. You should never lie when a vague truth is more effective. Ambiguity is the art of answering a question without giving away any real information. It forces them to search for a hidden meaning, giving you a mental advantage. To that colleague who questioned your risky decision, after your strategic silence, you don't offer a detailed justification. You offer an ambiguous reframe. You might say calmly, "You're right, it is a risk. All great opportunities are." Or even better, "I understand your concern." The most critical variables in this plan are the ones we can't discuss in an open forum. You've validated their emotion, but denied them the information. You've hinted at a deeper strategy they aren't privy to, elevating your status and ending the conversation. You've explained nothing, yet you've seized complete control. This is invaluable on social media, where mobs demand immediate explanations. To explain is to engage the mob on its terms. Battle you can't win. A Machiavellian approach is to offer a statement so ambiguous it can't be attacked. A public figure might release a statement saying, "There's a great deal of discussion happening, and I'm listening. I remain committed to my path forward and the values I stand for." It sounds like something was said, but nothing was admitted. It gives the mob no new material, and their rage, deprived of fuel, eventually moves on. The third weapon is surgical redirection. This is the technique of taking the focus of a question and turning it back on the questioner, or toward a new subject of your choosing. Skilled politicians do this all the time. When asked a direct, challenging question, they answer the question they wish they'd been asked. Imagine a CEO is asked, "Your profits are down 15%, and critics blame your leadership. How do you respond?" A defensive CEO would start making excuses about the market or supply chains. A strategic CEO would redirect. They might say, "What's truly important here isn't short-term fluctuations. What's important is the long-term vision we're executing." Let me tell you about the revolutionary new product line we're launching next month, which will redefine the industry. They've ignored the premise of failure and replaced it with a narrative of innovation. In personal life, this can de-escalate pointless fights. A partner asks, "Why did you forget to do the one thing?" I asked. "Do you not care?" An explanatory response leads to a circular argument. A redirecting response steps outside the frame. You could say, "You're right, I forgot, and I can see you're upset. Let's put this aside for a minute. Come here." You're redirecting from the content of the failure to the emotional connection, refusing to explain the lapse, and instead taking action to address the underlying feeling. These weapons, strategic silence, calculated ambiguity, and surgical redirection, form a communication style that projects unshakable authority. It takes immense self-control. Your instincts will scream at you to fill the silence and answer directly. You must treat that instinct as your enemy. It is the voice of submission. By mastering this arsenal, you stop being a reactor and become the one who sets the terms. To see these principles wielded with the cold precision Machiavelli admired, we just have to look at his prime example in the Prince Cesare Borgia. The story of Borgia and his lieutenant, Ramiro de Orco, is a masterclass in communicating power not with words, but with brutal, unforgettable action. In the early 1500s, Borgia had conquered the chaotic region of Romagna. The area was lawless, and Borgia knew that to hold it, he had to bring it to heel. Explaining his new laws would have been pointless. Power had to be demonstrated, not declared. He appointed a man named Ramiro de Orco as governor. Machiavelli describes de Orco as a cruel and efficient man, the perfect tool for the dirty work. Borgia gave him full power to restore order by any means necessary, and de Orco did just that. He was swift and merciless, executing bandits and imposing a rigid, fear-based order. In a short time, Romagna was pacified, but a new problem emerged. The very cruelty that created order also bred intense hatred for de Orco, and by extension, for Borgia himself. A lesser leader might have tried to solve this with words, giving a speech about necessary evils or long-term benefits. Borgia did none of this. He knew explanations would be seen as weakness, so he orchestrated his masterstroke of perception management. He decided to make Ramiro de Orco a sacrifice. One morning, the people of Cesena woke up to a horrifying spectacle in the main square. There lay the body of Ramiro de Orco, cut in two. Beside his remains were a block of wood and a bloody knife. This single, gruesome act was Borgia's explanation. It was a message more powerful than any speech, sending several signals at once. First, the apparent message was, the cruelty you suffered was the work of this man, and he has been punished for it. This brilliantly distanced Borgia from the hatred, redirecting it onto the dead lieutenant and satisfying the people's desire for vengeance. He presented himself not as the source of their misery, but as their savior. Second, it seemed to say, no one is above my law, not even my most powerful governor. If I will do this to my own right-hand man, imagine what I will do to you if you cross me. This was a chilling demonstration of absolute authority, replacing the fear of a chaotic tyrant with the fear of an inescapable sovereign. The effect, as Machiavelli notes, was profound. The brutality of the spectacle left the people both satisfied and stupefied. They were satisfied that their oppressor was punished, and stupefied by the swift, ruthless power they had just witnessed. In a single stroke, Borgia had secured their loyalty, purged their hatred, and solidified his reputation as a strong ruler, all without a single word of explanation. This is the essence of Machiavellian perception control. Don't tell them you are just perform an act of unforgettable justice. Don't explain that you're in control. Demonstrate terrifying control. Let your actions be so clear and symbolic that they make words obsolete. The story of Cesare Borgia is a timeless reminder that in the theater of power, the greatest statements are never spoken. They are staged. 5 centuries have passed, but the theater of power is fundamentally the same. The stages have changed from Renaissance courts to corporate boardrooms and digital timelines, but the human psychology is identical. The principles of perception control are more relevant than ever. In corporate leadership, Machiavellian strategies are often disguised as strategic management or public relations. Take a corporate layoff. A weak leader, driven by the urge to explain, will deliver the news with long justifications about market forces and express deep personal regret. This is meant to soften the blow, but it makes the leader look weak and reactive, a victim of circumstance. A more strategic leader understands the action is the explanation. The layoff is announced with precision and a powerful forward-looking narrative. The message isn't, "We're sorry we have to do this." It's, "To accelerate our transition into the dominant force in the market, we are reorganizing our structure. This is a difficult but necessary step to ensure our victory." The language is cold, strategic, and focused on future dominance. It presents the decision as a move in a grand chess game, leaving people feeling not that the company is weak, but that it is ruthless and determined to win. Social media is the ultimate arena for this. It's a space ruled entirely by appearance. Here, the rule to not over-explain is paramount. On platforms like X or Instagram, any lengthy, nuanced explanation is dead on. A rival's immediately screenshot and used as ammunition. The mob doesn't want to understand you. It wants to judge you. The powerful influencer or public figure uses ambiguity and silence. Faced with criticism, they don't engage in public debate. They might post a cryptic message their followers see as strength. They might go silent, communicating that they are unbothered by the noise. Or they might just ignore the controversy, a powerful statement that the opinions of their detractors are insignificant. They are curating an aura of untouchable confidence. Their lack of explanation becomes a status symbol. It says, "You're debating my actions in the comments while I'm living my life." Who has the power here? This even extends into our personal relationships. In modern dating, the impulse to over-explain is often fatal to attraction. A person who constantly explains their jokes or justifies their needs is broadcasting insecurity. Attraction is often drawn to a quiet confidence that doesn't need external validation. Think of the person who sends a multi-page text after a fight, detailing every thought, hoping for closure. They think they're being open and honest. From a power perspective, they are revealing their entire emotional hand, showing how deeply the conflict affected them, and handing their partner all the power. The more potent response is disciplined restraint. After a disagreement, you create space. You let the silence do the work. Your lack of a panicked explanation communicates that you're not desperate for a resolution on their terms. It suggests you have a strong inner world, and your emotional state isn't dependent on their approval. This often makes them the one to reach out. By refusing to over-explain, you maintain your value. In all these arenas, business, social media, and personal life, the same truth holds. The world is saturated with noise. In this environment, the person with the discipline to be silent, to be ambiguous, and to let their actions speak for themselves, possesses a rare and immense power. They don't have to fight for the narrative. They become the narrative. This path of perception control runs contrary to a lot of what we're taught about being open and moral. As you absorb this philosophy, your mind will naturally raise objections. To build real authority, you have to meet these objections head on first. But if I don't explain, won't people just assume the worst? Won't my silence be taken as guilt? This comes from a fear of being judged. The Machiavellian answer is twofold. First, yes, some people will assume the worst. Let them. The opinions of those predisposed to judge you harshly don't matter. They would have twisted your words anyway. You can't win over a committed enemy with an explanation. You only signal that you fear their judgment, which empowers them. Your silence defies their narrative. It says, "Your opinion of me is irrelevant." Second, you're underestimating the power of mystery. While some assume guilt, many others will be confused or even impressed. Your silence creates a void that people fill with their own psychology. Allies see strength. Rivals see a calculated move, which makes them cautious. You give up trying to control everyone's perception and instead create an aura of unpredictability, far greater asset than being liked. As Machiavelli famously argued, it is much safer to be feared than loved. Love is fickle, but a certain kind of fear, born from not knowing what you're capable of, commands respect. The second objection: what about honesty and transparency? Isn't this just a recipe for becoming a manipulative sociopath? This is a moral objection, but it misunderstands the goal. This philosophy isn't about being evil. It's about being effective in a world that isn't always good. Machiavelli argued that sticking to conventional morality at all costs can lead to your ruin, because you will face people who don't play by those rules. As he wrote, "The way we live is so different from how we ought to live, that anyone who ignores what is done for what ought to be done will bring about their own ruin. Honesty and transparency are tools. You should use them when it serves your long-term goals. But being transparent with a manipulator isn't virtuous. It's foolish. Being honest with an enemy who wants to destroy you isn't noble. It's self-destructive. The point is to develop strategic wisdom, to know when to offer clarity and when to offer a mask. Refusing to explain isn't about being dishonest. It's about refusing to walk into a trap set by those who have no right to an explanation." The third objection is more personal. This sounds lonely. If I never explain myself, how can I form genuine connections? This confuses explaining yourself with expressing yourself. They are not the same. Explaining is a defensive reaction to judgment. Expressing is a proactive, vulnerable act of sharing from a position of strength. You should absolutely express yourself to the people you trust, your family, your closest friends, your partner. With them, you can and should share your fears, dreams, and reasoning. But this expression is a gift you choose to give, not a tax you are forced to pay in every interaction. The rule of never explain applies to the world outside this trusted inner circle, to office politics, social competition, and any arena where you are being challenged. In those arenas, your inner self isn't a gift to be shared. It's a fortress to be protected. The goal isn't to be a cold, isolated island. It's to be the sovereign of your own kingdom. You decide who gets access. This discernment is the hallmark of true power. We've journeyed into the cold, pragmatic heart of a strategy inspired by Machiavelli. We've dismantled the impulse to explain and started building a new framework for authority. This is a fundamental shift in how you see your place in the world, the path. From being a defendant in the court of public opinion to being the sovereign on your own throne. But this is just the beginning. To truly master the art of influence, you must keep sharpening your mind. If this analysis of power and perception resonates with you, if you're ready to stop seeking approval and start commanding respect, then your journey continues here. Subscribe to this channel. Join a community of individuals dedicated to dissecting the timeless strategies of power, from ancient philosophers to modern titans, to give you the intellectual weapons you need. Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And in the comments below, make a declaration. Right? I control the narrative. It's a small act, but it's a statement of intent. It is your first step in reclaiming your power. A reminder that from this day forward, you are the one who writes your story. We started with a simple, frustrating scenario, trying to explain yourself to someone who refuses to understand. We end with a liberating truth. You never needed their understanding in the first place. The need for constant explanation is a cage you build for yourself, bar by bar. Machiavelli's enduring genius was his ability to see the world as it is, not as we wish it would be. He saw a world driven by self-interest, fear, and the pursuit of power. In such a world, the person who constantly explains their motives is like a general who broadcasts his battle plans to the enemy. To adopt this principle is to undergo a radical internal shift. It demands unshakable confidence in your own judgment. It forces you to tolerate being misunderstood by the masses, finding validation in your results, not their applause. It requires you to master your emotional impulses, choosing the commanding power of silence over the pleading comfort of words. This isn't a path to arrogance or cruelty. It's a path to freedom. The freedom from the exhausting task of managing everyone's perception of you. The freedom to act decisively, to pursue your goals without apology, and to build a reputation based not on what you say, but on what you do. Let them whisper. Let them guess. Let them misinterpret your silence. Their confusion is the sound of your growing power. While they're busy trying to figure you out, you will be busy building your empire. Your actions will become your only necessary explanation. Your success will be your ultimate vindication, and your silence will be remembered far longer than their noise. Stop explaining, start commanding.